everybody. Now that Purim is behind us, the next thing on our plate is Passover. Passover is a very exciting time of year for all Jews. It's a time of tremendous tradition, and I don't think there's a more beloved holiday ritual than the Seder itself. When preparing for Passover, there's a few things you have to keep in mind. One of them, and I think the biggest one, is the koshering and the cleaning of your house. We're going to put that one to the side. That's not the topic of today's video. If you want to hear more about that, please stop by the Tucson Torah Center. We're going to be giving a series of classes. We look forward to seeing you there. Today, as you can see, we're standing in front of Safeway, the most robust kosher section in the city. We're going to talk today about purchasing certain types of what you need to know about purchasing food for Passover, purchasing different products for Passover. Now, when you talk about purchasing things for Passover, you're going to break it into a few different sections. Today we're going to talk about edible items, food items. We're going to talk about non-food items. And then finally, we're going to get to the topic of matzah itself. Now, when you're talking about food items, there's something you have to keep in mind, which is bring yourself back for a moment to the less modern world. Let's go back 100 years. Back in the day, it was very easy to know what was inside your food because you made it. And even if you purchased it from a store, the world was filled with very simple ingredients. Currently, with the exception of very specific progressive companies, many foods that we eat have many additives in them and have a lot of other ingredients in them that we wouldn't even be expecting to find there. So let's take a step forward. Let's first talk about chametz itself. What is chametz? As we know, on Passover, we don't eat chametz. Chametz is comprised of 5 types of grains. We have wheat, spelt, oats, barley, and rye. Those are the main chametz grains. The Torah tells us that if any one of those grains interacts with water and then gets to sit like that for 18 minutes, it becomes chametz. And that is, as we all know, the thing that you're trying to avoid on Passover itself. That's the topic of cleaning. That's also the topic of purchasing. There is another very important category for Ashkenazi Jews, Jews of Ashkenazic descent, which is, myself included, have a tradition dating back at least 800 years that we don't eat another type of food as well, called kitniot. Kitniot is not conventional grains, but they're kind of off-brand foods which were easily confused with grains. And because of that, for almost 1,000 years, we haven't eaten them. Included in that group is corn, rice, different types of beans, legumes. String beans is a classic. We don't eat those either. There are certain exceptions when it comes to the category of kitniot. For instance, when somebody is ill, or included in that category is baby formula, or even sometimes when someone is in desperate need. We can talk about that at a different time. We're not going to get into that in too much depth, but it's important to note that included in that category things included in that category are going to get excluded from things that we can purchase for Ashkenazi Jews. Even Sephardi Jews, we'll talk about this in a minute, are going to need to make sure that those products themselves have a kosher for Passover symbol. Okay, bringing us now to the produce section. Now, produce is a funny beast because like we described before, everything that's a natural substance except for those specific foods is totally permitted on Passover. Because of that, when you find yourselves in the fresh produce section, you're basically free and clear with the exclusion of what would be considered kitniot. For a more comprehensive list of kitniot items, you can find many resources online, as well as we'll be sending out our own resources. You can find those resources underneath the video. Other than kitniot, another thing you have to be aware of when you shop for produce, and this is year-round, is insect infestations. Little known, but very often bugs are inside of produce. And there's many companies, kosher organizations, that have worked tirelessly to produce scientific methods of checking for those bugs, removing those bugs, and making sure that you have a kosher, bug-free salad. So if you're looking for those resources as well, you can find them on these websites, specifically the Star K. Star-K.org has a wonderful resource with regard to bug checks, so on and so forth, beyond the purview of this video. As soon as we leave the produce section, we find ourselves in the regular shelf-stable section. Now, let's break Safeway into 2 parts for a moment. There's the kosher for Passover section, which Safeway has done an excellent job putting together. And then there's the regular kosher aisle. Don't get those two confused, because in the actual kosher aisle, you're going to find tons of products which are both kosher for Passover and not kosher for Passover. So you have to be very conscientious when inside that aisle. Now, you should know, even in the regular kosher for Passover aisle, as we get closer to Passover and products start falling off and getting sold, the store itself might start stocking by accident not kosher for Passover items on that shelf. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, what makes an item kosher for Passover or not? Now, that's going to come down to regular kosher supervision. When they apply for specific kosher Passover supervision, they go into that company and they make sure that none of those common additives are part of the meal. Now, when I say common additives, I'm referring to very common additives. There's certain types of citric acid. There's ascorbic acid. There's dextrose. There's maltodextrin. There's other forms of dextrin. A lot of these things are actually derived from wheat products or sometimes from corn products. So when we talk about being a conscientious purchaser and their need for kosher, specific kosher Passover certification, that's why we're on the lookout. Now, what is a kosher Passover certification? You're going to see them all over the shelves. OUP, P in this context does not mean Parv, it means kosher Passover. OUP, CRC itself has some that are Passover, Star KP, all these things, and you can find, again, lists of that on these resources. When you're shopping yourself, just be aware, sometimes these certifications are in Hebrew. When it says kosher LePesach, that means that it's kosher for Passover. When it says lo kalo Pesach, that means it's not kosher for Passover. It's a little confusing for someone who's not intimately familiar with the Hebrew language. If you find yourself stuck and you're not sure what it means, you can feel free to reach out either to us or to your local Israeli friends, and they'll help you through it. Especially out here in Tucson, you're going to find that the cost of kosher for Passover items is more than regular kosher items. That's because of the extra work that goes into producing them. But you should know, due to extensive research from some of these kosher organizations, there are many products that don't actually need a kosher for Passover symbol, such as salt. As long as salt is non-iodized and it contains no additives, that's going to be okay without any kosher for Passover symbol. Non-flavored seltzer is the same way. Sugar, regular, pure, granulated cane sugar is okay as well, as long as there's no dextrose in it. Pure cocoa powder produced in the US with no additives, as well as raw nuts that have been unprocessed and have no additives, are okay as well. That's a full list of those things can be found on these websites. Making our way over to non-food items is something that's very important to keep in the back of your mind. And that is that when we say we have to get rid of our chametz on Pesach, we get rid of our chametz on Passover, it's not just because of ingestion. The Torah also says we can't have any chametz anywhere in our house. And as part of the spiritual pursuit of cleaning our house, cleaning our souls in preparation for the holiday of Passover. Therefore, Play-Doh, for instance, is not a great idea. There are certain even supplements which can be very troubling. For instance, Bene fiber. Bene fiber is made out of wheat fibers, which we then mix with water and then drink. That would be a great example of something not to have on Passover. For a list of these things as well, you can find on these websites. Another classic problem that can come about is animal food. What do I feed my cat? What do I feed my dog? And why does my dog have to keep Passover anyway? It's all for the same reason, which is that we don't own or derive benefit from chametz on Passover. And therefore, for a list of these items, as well as items like for a very extensive list of pet food and for all different types of animals, again, you can find on these websites, they've done a tremendous amount of research. One more thing that's very important when we shop for Passover, and that is matzah. Everybody loves or hates matzah. Matzah is an integral part of the holiday. When it comes to matzah, there's two main categories and then a subcategory. Number one, you have to make sure that your matzah is the kosher for Passover matzah and not the not kosher. The not kosher Passover matzah is just a cracker. Crackers are not something that should be eaten on Passover. So just make sure that the brand matzah that you get has the kosher certification for Passover itself. Even within kosher for Passover matzahs, there's another beautiful thing to keep in mind, which is that the Torah says that for the Seder night, for that first night and second night, if you're out here outside of Israel, those nights of the Seder, the nights when we eat the matzah, those nights, the matzah that we eat has to have been prepared specifically for the mitzvah to fulfill the commandment of matzah itself. That is what's called shmura matzah. That matzah was specifically guarded from becoming chametz in order to fulfill this mitzvah. And that's a requirement from the Torah. Many matzahs you find on the shelf, specifically here in this Safeway, are not shmura matzah. They're beautiful matzah, they're not chametz, and they could be eaten the entire Passover. However, for the Seder night itself, one should try very diligently to come up with shmura matzah. They have in this Safeway hand shmura matzah. That's more of a circle-shaped matzah. There is as well a different type of matzah called machine shmura matzah. That matzah actually is not found in this Safeway. It could be cheaper. So if someone finds the price of this matzah too high, look online. Look on Amazon. You can find machine shmura. You also find machine shmura through some of these supermarkets that order and deliver to Tucson itself. Have a wonderful Passover. We look forward to seeing you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out at passover@tucsontc.org. Have a wonderful holiday.